The Home Secretary has denied he is responsible for the death of Shamima Begum's baby in Syria. Sajid Javid said he stripped the London teenager of her British citizenship to teach other potential terrorists a lesson. He was talking in the House of Commons today. Our political correspondent Simon Harris was listening. What was said then?
Well, the Home Secretary was basically being asked to justify his decision to revoke Shamima Begum's UK citizenship. What were his reasons? Top of the list, it seems, was apparently the risk she poses. Sajid Javid said he took the advice of the security services and the police. But ever since news broke on Friday night that her 3-week-old baby son had been taken from the refugee camp to a hospital where he died, there's been criticism of that decision from MPs and from children's charities. Well, today, Sajid Javid suggested another reason for his decision: to teach others a lesson.
There are no easy answers. I must also think about future conflicts and the precedents that we set. I don't want any more children brought into a war zone because their parents think that they will automatically be bailed out no matter what the risk.
Labour has described the decision as callous and possibly illegal. Today, Diane Abbott, the Shadow Home Secretary, said the decision had denied the little boy the chance of life.
This schoolgirl, born and brought up in Bethnal Green, was Britain's responsibility. But above all, bringing the mother and baby home would also have given the baby a chance of life.
And Simon, we've also learnt today about some other Britons who've had their citizenship removed.
Yes, it's not a new tactic. Mr Javid said 150 had had that applied to them since 2010, and we now know that includes 2 sisters from Canning Town. Zara and Rima Iqbal left East London in 2013 to travel to territory controlled by Islamic State, and like Shamima Begum, they too are in refugee camps with their children.
Simon, thank you. Good evening. After 2.5 years of negotiations, tonight we will finally know whether or not Theresa May has found a deal for Britain to exit the EU. In about an hour's time, MPs will vote on the renewed terms she agreed in Strasbourg last night. In a faltering voice in the Commons this afternoon, she said they must back her or risk no Brexit at all. The Hemel Hempstead MP Mike Panning was convinced he's changed his stance and will vote with Theresa May tonight, but she needs dozens of others to do the same if she's to have any chance of success. Well, our political correspondent Simon Harris is at Westminster for us tonight. Simon.
Lucrezia, it's not looking good for the Prime Minister tonight. 2 months after her catastrophic defeat, it seems history is about to repeat itself. One by one, the skittles have been falling. First of all, the Attorney General gave his legal opinion on the latest changes to her withdrawal agreement. Then the Democratic Unionist Party gave it the thumbs down, followed by the Tory Brexit hardliners. So for Mrs May, throughout the day, here at Westminster, the storm clouds have been gathering. Talk about commitment to the cause. Even pouring rain and a howling gale isn't enough to silence the Brexit stalwarts of Westminster. They're here for every big vote, and today that meant getting soaked and chilled. Away from the elements, the Attorney General was at the centre of a different kind of storm as he gave his verdict on Mrs May's latest deal.
The legal risk, as I set it out in my letter of the 13th of November, remains unchanged.
In other words, Britain could be trapped in the Northern Ireland backstop forever.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
Not for the first time, Mrs May had a frog in her throat, but her warning was clear.
If this vote is not passed tonight, if this deal is not passed, then Brexit could be lost.
At least some Tory MPs were taken in by the scare tactics.
I was amongst the 230 majority that voted against it. I will vote for it this evening because I actually believe this is the best deal we can get.
If it fails and doesn't pass tonight, there is every likelihood of a general election, and I say that with no relish because the last thing I want to do is spend 6.5 weeks tramping around the country.
We're not gonna Brexit.
For months, MPs giving TV interviews have struggled to make themselves heard over a wall of noise from the protesters. Sheila Rowling, a retired teacher from Chesham in Buckinghamshire, is a regular who wants Brexit stopped.
I had no idea that I would feel that I needed to be here more often. So recently I've been coming almost daily.
In the opposing camp, Irene Sullivan, a retired council worker from Loughton in Essex, equally unimpressed by Mrs May.
Doesn't seem to have a definite plan, and I do believe it's because she's really a Remainer and she's not tried her hardest and been demanding.
It's enough of a challenge for Mrs May to win over her own side, but even some Labour MPs were wavering.
If she was getting close, if my vote was going to be the difference between her securing her deal and not, then I would be inclined to vote for it. If she's going down big time, I'm not going to waste all the political capital and goodwill.
Where we are now is the Prime Minister having wasted more time running down the clock, trying to threaten us with her deal or no deal.
How will you vote tonight?
Same strategy. I'm going to vote against the Prime Minister's deal.
When it comes to Brexit, not much is certain, but whatever happens tonight, whatever the weather tomorrow, the demonstrators will be back.
Well, Simon, the Prime Minister needs all the backing she can get if she's going to get her deal through tonight. But how much influence do London MPs have?
Well, you only have to look at the numbers to see how little support there was among London MPs for Mrs May's deal and how big a task she has. There are 73 MPs in London, and at the last meaningful vote in January, 65 of them opposed it. That included 13 from her own party. Now, I think it's pretty unlikely that any Labour MPs will come on board tonight. Even Jim Fitzpatrick, who we heard from earlier, suggesting he might be tempted to back Mrs May's deal, now seems to have decided that her defeat is going to be so big that he's not prepared to risk his Labour Party membership backing a doomed Brexit deal like this.
All right, Simon, a busy night ahead. Thank you.
While detectives investigate that violence in Brixton a few hours ago, there was a stabbing outside Leighton Tube Station in East London. The attack happened as the Chancellor was announcing more money for police forces to tackle knife crime. Our political correspondent Simon Harris is at London's latest crime scene for us this evening. Simon.
Yes, Nina, the latest victim of London's deadly knife crime epidemic is in hospital tonight, where doctors are trying to save his life. He was obviously very seriously injured. The 17-year-old was found with multiple stab wounds lying on the pavement close to the entrance to Leighton Underground Station shortly before 1 o'clock this afternoon, when paramedics and police arrived. At around about the same time, the Chancellor of the Exchequer was on his feet in the House of Commons giving his spring statement, where he announced he was giving the police an extra £80 million.
The recent surge in knife crime represents a personal tragedy for the scores of families of victims, and I know I can speak for the whole House when I offer my deepest sympathies to them. We must and we will stamp out this menace.
The £80 million plus another £20 million from an existing Home Office budget will be split between 7 police forces in urban areas most affected by knife crime. We don't know how much money London will get, but the Mayor Sadiq Khan certainly wasn't impressed.
What the government's announced today is a one-off payment. I'm not sure how much we're going to receive in London. It won't pay for us recruiting more officers. All it'll pay for at best is our hard-working officers doing more overtime. So I welcome what we've got. It's better than nothing. But the government's got to realise they need to reverse the cuts but give us the monies to recruit more police officers.
The government says police funding, presumably including the number of officers on the payroll, will be part of a new government spending review. Nina, here in Leighton, we don't know much more from the police about what happened, but we do know that there have been no arrests.
All right, Simon. Simon Harris, thank you.
Tonight, the emotional and at times somewhat baffling week of politics continues. Today's twist over at Westminster is a vote on the extension to Article 50, and our political correspondent Simon Harris is there.
Tonight, Brexit on a knife edge as MPs vote delay or second referendum. But how will it end?
Also on the programme tonight.
I've just been burgled. I've just been burgled? Yes, two young men have just entered the house and walked up in my handbag.
The final words of Maureen Whale after she found burglars in her home and then collapsed. TfL buckles under pressure and agrees to remove ads proclaiming Michael Jackson's innocence. Plus,
there might be other Dame Leslies, but there won't be another Dame Twiggy. So Dame Twiggy it is, please.
We catch up with the latest Dame in town at Buckingham Palace. Good evening. Now, you'd be forgiven for losing track of all these Brexit votes. Just as you get your head around one, a whole load more come along. But in the Commons right now, a series of crucial decisions are being made as MPs once again try to bring some clarity to the confusion of when, if and how Britain leaves the European Union. Well, today, various proposals have been debated. You can see them there in the House of Commons. And tonight, they're being voted on. And by the end of this evening, Parliament may have decided to support a delay to Brexit, which is still due to happen in 15 days' time. Our political correspondent Simon Harris is at Westminster for us tonight. Simon, can you bring some clarity?
Charlene, it's been another nail-biting day for the Prime Minister. On Tuesday, her withdrawal agreement was again comprehensively rejected by MPs. Yesterday, they voted to stop a no-deal Brexit. Tonight, Westminster is again buzzing with anticipation. Right now, MPs are voting on a series of measures designed to stop Brexit happening on March the 29th or even happening at all. Attempts to force a second referendum and allow MPs to take control have just been defeated. But once again, Brexit is on a knife edge. Maybe they had a late night, maybe it was the weather, but the ranks of protesters had visibly shrunk as MPs came back to Parliament for yet another day of Brexit torment. Up for discussion, a second referendum and delaying Britain's departure from the EU. Brexit-supporting MPs were furious.
We're in the most enormous difficulty for our whole politics because a majority of my colleagues in that place are reneging on the commitment on which they were elected in 2017 to deliver the decision of the British people in 2016.
If Parliament is at an impasse, Parliament is representative of the people. If Parliament on behalf of the people can't agree, then it should go back to the people.
The default position still remains because it's there in Article 50. If we don't get a deal and we don't get an extension, then we leave on March the 29th with no deal and we'll have to manage that situation.
If the protesters were thin on the ground outside, the green benches weren't exactly rammed on the inside. With Britain's future at stake, it doesn't get much more serious than this. But bizarrely, two MPs on opposing sides decided now was the moment to have a bet on when the Prime Minister would try for a third time to seal her deal.
I bet him 50 quid for Help for Heroes that meaningful vote 3 would be on the 26th. For the avoidance of doubt, will he take a cheque?
Taking cheques from the honourable gentleman may be a slippery slope, but maybe in the spirit of compromise, why don't both he and I give £50 to Help for Heroes?
The government said there was another dead cert.
If we are in the world of a longer extension for this House to come to a decision, then we will be required, as a condition, to hold European parliamentary elections in May.
After 3 days of Brexit debate, some MPs sounded weary.
Mr. Speaker, there's not just division in the lobbies, but divisions within our own parties in terms of our thoughts and our feelings around Brexit and our frustrations and our energies as well.
We should now get on with the process that unblocks the gridlock so that we can move things forward and move our country forward.
We are pushing a people's vote because we want there to be a people's vote. And we want people to support that. And this will be the opportunity to do that. And frankly, we are running out of time in which to express support for a people's vote.
After 4.5 hours of talking, it was decision time.
OK, you talk about decision time, Simon. So where are we this evening with these votes?
Well, Charlene, MPs have been voting on a series of amendments since 5 o'clock. The main vote tonight is on a plan to postpone Brexit for a short period after May the 29th, March the 29th, seen as another way for Theresa May to try once again to get her deal back through Parliament. But before that vote takes place, there are these various amendments on various other measures that have been voted on. 2 of them so far. We've already seen MPs reject the idea of MPs taking control of the Brexit process, and the other defeat tonight was for those calling for a second referendum. This is what the former Labour MP and now independent MP for Streatham, Chuka Umunna, had to say.
this does illustrate that unless the Eurosceptic leader of the Labour Party actually goes with the pro-European instincts of his party, we're not going to be able to give this matter back to the people. That is the long and short of it. We're going to keep making the argument. We're not going to give up because we believe the only way out of this chaos is for this issue to be referred back to the people.
OK, Chuka and Minna, they're talking about it being referred back to the people, but MPs voted against a second referendum earlier on this evening. So, for some clarification then, Simon, does that mean it's definitely off the table now?
No, far from it. There was never really much expectation that it would pass today. It was really more of a question of testing the temperature to see where MPs stand. But at the end of the day, many Labour MPs who support, particularly in London, who support a second referendum, decided now was not the time. It would muddy the waters. So Labour MPs abstained. So it wasn't really a surprise when the second referendum idea was voted down. But it certainly hasn't gone away. And of course, what we're still waiting for is the main vote tonight on whether Brexit will be delayed.
Of course, of course. Thank you so much, Simon. But we will return to you if there are any major developments before the end of the programme. Thank you.